Hello, Research Champions. Welcome to one of the installments of the pre-workshop materials that we're making available to you ahead of the Research Champions Workshop 2022. This talk is all about the SLT Research Practitioner Framework Resource Map. This is a resource that the RCSLT, in collaboration with many different members, have produced over the last couple of years. It is specifically of relevance to Research Champions and indeed for the workshop itself. This talk will hopefully introduce you to the CAHPR Research Practitioner Framework that all registrants have been asked to take a look at ahead of the workshop. And hopefully it would also help you to set some goals, perhaps for the workshop itself or beyond. So I just want to be clear that the work I'm talking about today is actually supported by a really great big team of collaborators, all of which are RCSLT members and research champions. So thank you so much to everyone who's inputted into this resource and the development of it over the last few years. So the question we're going to kind of be using to guide this talk is something hopefully that resonates with many research champions. So I want to embed research in my practice. There seem to be maybe quite a lot of resources and networks to support me. But how do I know what to do, who to speak to, how to do it, and when? And I'm hoping by showing you the resource that we've created and the Research Practitioner Framework Resource Map, this will give you start to give you a bit of an answer to these questions. So there was a project that kicked off a couple of years ago that brought together all the different sort of chairs and leads of some of these speech and language therapy research and EBP networks, probably that many of you are part of, including the research champions, of course. So the aim really was to bring these networks together, identify who is out there, invite them, get everyone into one room so that we can start talking about what we do to support the profession. The second part of that, therefore, was to really differentiate the remit of the different networks. So whose focus is on one certain thing, perhaps some do others, other elements of support, whereas others don't. So to really kind of map out who is in this sphere and what can they contribute to you as a speech and language therapist wanting to sort of get involved in research. Really, the ultimate kind of aim of that, therefore, was kind of create a who's who guide for speech and language therapists to sort of dip in and out of. And obviously this, along with it, comes with hopefully some kind of resource that can help you to identify who you might want to link in with and develop towards your specified goals. So we called this kind of group of people that we got together in the room, the Research Capacity Building Networks. So we had, as I mentioned earlier, our lovely colleagues representing these different groups. So we had the CAHPR and NIHR HP Research Champions, REDSNet, SLT, the healthcare professionals in research Facebook community, a couple of our own RCSLT networks. So we had our clinical academic mentors and research champions, of course. We had CAHPR, we had the Clin SLT SEN, and we also had the Northeast SLT Research Network. So we got everyone from these groups in a room to start doing these activities that we had mapped out. So to kind of do this in a systematic and kind of robust way, we chose to basically take a tool to map our networks against, and that was the CAHPR Research Practitioner Framework. So hopefully this is something that maybe the research champions will have looked at by now, but if not, I'm going to go through it quite quickly. So this is a resource. It's available through the CAHPR website to download. They've also published an academic article on its development, and this is really a very comprehensive framework that takes you through lots of different domains of development in developing your research practitioner skills. They've split this up into very, very discrete components. So there are different knowledge and skill statements, which you can see on the screen here. I've just picked out a couple from the research methods section. And they've also disaggregated these by entry level. So if you're kind of brand new to getting involved in research, you can look at these awareness level statements and maybe use those to create a goal or put in your professional development plan or do a bit of CPD on. But obviously, of course, there is also core and intermediate, and there's an advanced level as well. So hopefully there's really something for everyone in this resource, in this practitioner framework, which is one of the reasons really why we chose it, because as a profession, of course, we need to be supporting SLTs at every stage of their research career, and this is something that's really important to us. So using this framework from CAHPR, each network then sort of worked through every single one of those knowledge and skill statements and simply just did kind of an audit as marked whether, yes, this is something that we focus on in our network, in our group. This is something that we've thought about and we hope to do some work on in the future. So an aspirational focus or goal, or just simply, no, this is not within our remit. This is not something that we tend to do. So really, after all the networks had gone through that, what resulted was a really comprehensive guide to each of those networks that aligned to the CAHPR framework, that hopefully could be turned into something useful for SLTs to support them to embed research into their careers. And the result was what we called, it's a very catchy title, the SLT Research Practitioner Framework Resource Map. So I'm not going to go into the resource map itself here, but this is a QR code that you can scan. Everything is open access on the RCSLT website, so you can also share it with non-RCSLT members or non-SLTs, but you can download the full version, which is a giant Excel spreadsheet, just to warn you, or you can download the segregated versions, which are broken up by entry level. So if you know, for example, that you've been in research for a few years and maybe you want to skip straight ahead to the advanced one, and that's just everything listed on there. Or if you're not sure, you can obviously kind of have a browse of all of them as much as you wish. Of course, on the full resource map, you can also apply filters if you're confident in doing that, so you can just see the different entry levels or whatever you wish. But I'm just going to do a very brief kind of introduction to it. So if you do go and download it, this is what you'll get. It's a big spreadsheet. We've got all the different domains of the framework on the left. So this is divided up into the domains that are on the CAHPR resource, and then each of those individual knowledge and skills statements alongside their entry level in which they're listed as. And then this is where our work comes in, really, is the section in the middle, which is all the different networks where they've made a brief comment in terms of how they support SLTs in these domains, and then a sort of a tick box as to whether, yep, this is something we support you with, which is an X, or this is something that we're really hoping to work on in the near future, which is an A. Or of course, if it's blank, that just means, well, that's not relevant to the remit of this group, and that's fine, because hopefully you'll find that there are networks that kind of support in each of those domains. On the end, we've also listed some additional resources that we hope are helpful for speech and language therapists to look at kind of beyond the networks. Obviously, we are really hoping that this will guide you to get involved with those networks, but we know that sometimes as well you just want a bit of extra resource. So for each of those knowledge and skills statement, we either signpost you to a link to have a look at something else, or maybe suggest, like on here, speaking to your local research development team or your research design service. Or we also have quite a few links on there to a resource for RCSLT members interested in research methods, which is SAGE research methods. And on there is a lot of different elements and tutorials for different parts of research. So we've kind of picked those out for you there as well. So now reflecting back on our original question. So I want to embed research in my practice. Hopefully now this has started to open some of those doors for you. So hopefully we're all thinking, and well, yeah, and now I know where to go. Hopefully I know who I could speak to and how to find out more about embedding research in my practice, regardless of what level I'm at. So just to finish up, I just wanted to touch on a few of our next steps. So we are updating this resource. We've got a couple of other networks to add into those columns. So as you can see here, we've got colleagues from the SLPhD network, which is a European network. And we've also got colleagues from the CDRF peer support group, and they're going to be adding their details into the resource as well. And really the aim of this then is, once we've kind of got what we think is a pretty good picture of all the different networks, is to run a bit of a gap analysis. So let's see where those boxes are being ticked and where they aren't, and where they aren't being ticked by, possibly any of the groups. What is it we can do to fill those gaps for speech and language therapists, to make sure that we're, touching all those points on that knowledge and skills framework? So that's going to hopefully guide some of our thinking, both at RCSLT and, as a collective with the group. See if there's some things we can do to fill those gaps, and then, update our resources, of course, and then hopefully what we're really planning to do is an evaluation as part of our kind of next steps of this. So I've put a hyperlink there, which I realize is not ideal, but I'll set, there's a QR code on the next slide. We do have online, just a short evaluation survey for the resource at the moment. So I would be really, really grateful for any of you that do, kind of after watching this, go and check out the resource. If you could please fill in that survey, we'd be really, really grateful. It's just a little bit of feedback for us before we kind of, go on these next steps. And we're going to be continually coming back to evaluate it. What we are planning to do a little bit in the future is a bit more of an in-depth evaluation. So if you are interested in, giving us a bit more feedback, whether it's through, a short interview or a focus group or something, we haven't quite got that planned out yet, but there is an option for you to drop your contact details in that evaluation form. So obviously we'd be really, really grateful if anyone wanted to kind of share their thoughts on that, and then possibly later in a bit more detail, we would really like to understand a little bit more about what's, is it useful, what's useful about it, and what can make it more useful, ideally. So, as I said, here's a little now and next board. If you can now go and kind of check out the Practitioner Framework resource map. You can use this to also ascertain your level. I think on the registration for the workshop, we're asking you to kind of go and have a look and see if you can identify which of those levels that CAHPR sort of describe that you think you're at. You can also use this resource map, of course, to do that as well. And then once you have gone and had a look, or maybe you've had a look before, if you could go and complete our short evaluation survey, we'd be really, really grateful. And again, just think about whether you'd like to be involved in evaluation activities going forward. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an overview as to what this resource is, how it's come about, and how it can be useful to you. In the workshop itself, we are not going to be focusing on this per se, but I think it's going to be really useful for everyone to kind of bear in mind, and hopefully you can develop some goals based on this that you can then maybe work on an action plan after you've kind of learned and heard about what's going on at the workshop. You can put some of these ideas and goals into practice. Thanks so much for listening, and look forward to seeing you at the workshop.